Get ready, get ready, get ready. It's Let's Talk Business with Cheryl J. Cousteau, the second hour of the show. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Sinead Davis.
Hi.
Listen, we have a lot on our show's agenda for you today. First and foremost, to our Facebook family, our YouTubers, just the whole social media platform, In Touch News. Thank you for tuning in to the show. It's Black History Month.
Woo, woo.
History Month to all of you. It's also, and that's why we have Ask the Doctor, our Dr. Guru in the house. It's also Heart Health Month, hence the ladies in red. And we cannot, another red would be our Super Bowl champions. History is being made all over the place. Congratulations to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Absolutely.
Super Bowl 55.
They're calling us Champa Bay now because we have all of this championship trophies and here baseball and soccer and football and and hockey. Yeah, we got the Stanley Cup too.
In hockey. We have all of that and then some. It's just a phenomenal city to live in, to work in, and all of that's great. We're going to go ahead and let you know that we have two physicians that will be joining us today with very, very important information. But as we're celebrating Black History Month, and thanks to Dr. Sinead Davis, I'm going to tell you a little bit about her guest, and then she's going to tell you why we have this legend joining us on our show today. It starts with researcher, medical school president. If you're wondering who that is, I may need to give you a little more information. Let's see. Graduated from Livingston College, magna cum laude, graduate of Emory University in the ATL, earning a Ph.D. in biochemistry. Graduate from Duke University, earning his medical degree. You need a little more?
Oh, he's a lot more. He's a lot more.
He is, but listen, that's not all. Lieutenant Commander, U.S. Public Health Service. Also, even today, works as a reserve officer. When we talk about this, and I'm going to say young man, here's another nugget for you. Pathologist at Duke University Hospital. Another nugget for you. Howard Hughes Medical Center, senior scientific officer. How about, are you ready for this? Morehouse School of Medicine, president, 2002. Dr. Davis?
Yes.
I believe Dr. Gavin has a twin.
It may be Dr. Gwede online right now.
Well, I know Dr. Gwede can hear us, but I'm telling you, and I tell you something unique. They both started out as researchers.
Awesome.
And to have them both on the show today, but this legend is here as a mentor of Dr. Sinead Davis. That in and of itself warrants a conversation between the two of them where we, as the listeners, will just glean from all that they're going to share with us. We're still dealing with our hot topics. You'll hear about that. You'll hear about COVID-19 and the African American community. And I believe we're going to learn where Dr. Gavin is when it comes to COVID vaccines. So, Dr. Davis, why don't you allow our Facebook listeners to learn more about your connection with the Dr. James R. Gavin III. Dr. Davis?
Yes. We are on with him now, still trying to get him on. We're still having some connection trouble. But Dr. Gavin is a living legend. I mean, an absolute. I think he just came on.
Oh, yes. Okay.
let's see. Did we get it? Are you on, sir? If we can get him in. You mentioned several wonderful things about Dr. Gavin, but I don't want to minimize certain facts about him. He is absolutely a living Black history legend in medicine, not just for our community, but throughout the world. He at I hesitate to mention an age, but he was born before before the civil rights era, and he hails from Mobile, Alabama. Um,
Yes.
from there, as you mentioned, his undergraduate degree started with an HBCU, Livingstone College. As a child prodigy, he always and the child of working class parents. He always sort of just kind of pulled himself up by his bootstraps, and he's a self-made genius. That's what I like to call him. Livingstone HBCU gave him his bachelor's, but even before he became the physician, the world-renowned physician that he got his PhD first. So
Yes.
research has always been a part of his practice. Most significantly is his research that began in the NIH, and his research looked at insulin receptors. And don't want to go too far into those details just for audience sakes, but for the most part, what he researched, the foundation of the findings are still present in our clinical practice today.
Awesome.
He started in endocrinology as a diabetologist, well, endocrinology altogether, but in his research with diabetes and looking at those insulin receptors, we now look at diabetes not just as a sugar problem, but it involves insulin resistance and obesity and the risk factors for heart disease. All of those things began with the foundation that his research findings uncovered. As the first Black president of the American Diabetes Association, his legacy is longstanding. Howard Hughes Institute, with that organization, he's mentored up and coming physicians, made way for minority physicians to date. I'm just one of the many benefactors of his genius, and we welcome him on board today. He is still having trouble with this password, so if it's possible that we can maybe take a break and get him on, that would be good. But if not, sure, we want to get
Well, you
someone.
know what I'm gonna do? We'll go ahead and take a break, but since we have, let's check in with Dr. Gwede. Are you
Awesome.
there, sir? Okay, he knew he was going to come back at the end of the show, so that's the picture that you're seeing there. He's going to come and talk to us. But let me
I'm
just you
here.
go ahead on and.
I am here.
Oh, awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, as we kind of work through the technical difficulties, let's use this opportunity, sir, to have you. And let me take the opportunity. We were saying at the beginning of the show that we have these two great positions here on our show today. And then here you are as a Moffitt Cancer Center researcher and health outcomes, and you're over the behavioral program. So our African American, our doctors have just delved into research.
Yes, indeed. At the Moffitt Cancer Center in Health Outcomes and Behavior as a faculty member there, as a researcher.
And Moffitt is a friend of ours. I mean, we have had a number of physicians. One of our in-house physicians is Dr. Cox. Dr. Brian Cox comes on, and he's been helping us and educating us when it comes to COVID-19. And so now you are here today. And so we appreciate Moffitt. We use this as an opportunity to say thank you to Moffitt. And Moffitt has a program that you are going to share with us today. Matter of fact, I was online, and so that I could register. It's going to be important that our radio listening audience, when you hear Dr. Gwede speak, it's very important that you go and register, because the workshop is tomorrow. So Dr. Gwede, please tell us a little bit about what you do at the Moffitt Cancer Center and why it is so important for you all to put this event on and why we need to attend.
Yes, thank you very much. I'm a faculty member or a researcher at the Moffitt Cancer Center who is interested in promoting use of the tools we know can help us prevent many different kinds of cancer or reduce the death rates. So we are my work is focused on addressing what we call cancer health disparities, which is the excess or disproportionate mortality or death rates among Black community. And our program that I'm going to talk about is called Cancer in the Black Community, a research update, which takes occurs tomorrow afternoon about 5 to 7 online. So please register. Is really intended to do three things. One, or at least share information about Moffitt's commitment to addressing or ending disparities, these differences we see when we compare Blacks to other groups. Secondly, to share information about some of the key cancers where we see these differences or these disparities. And third, to give you some tools and awareness as a community on what you might be able to do on your own behalf or your families.
And those are very three important points. And as I was listening you talk about the mission of Moffitt, Moffitt has been a supporter of the show. Moffitt is also a long-term supporter of my publication, DSI Black Pages, in helping us to bring awareness to the African American community. As a matter of fact, they also support Sisters Network, a group of African American women who are also bringing awareness to breast cancer. But you're there and you're here with and you're exposed to cutting edge technology. So we hear you talk about health disparities and how it's affecting the African American community. Is that what led you to Moffitt as a researcher, or were you already working in that field before Moffitt?
Certainly. So I was led to Moffitt for a variety of reasons, one of which is I'm a graduate of the University of South Florida College of Public Health, where I got my PhD.
Congratulations.
Go Bulls. Thank you.
Go Bulls.
Go Bulls. And being in the proximity, I became aware of Moffitt and I had an interest in cancer. And as an immigrant from Zimbabwe, I was very much already in tune with the aspects of social disparities. So it all came together right next door. So I didn't have to go far to find a place to practice my passion, even though, you know, health disparities are an awful thing, but I'm glad to contribute. And the third and last important thing, Moffitt's mission is to contribute to the prevention and cure of cancer. So our work in this area of health disparities is exactly trying to add and contribute to that overall mission, which makes, again, my work at Moffitt very, very natural and well aligned.
And very, very important. And you know, I was doing some research, and I think you've got like three great quotes. But one of your quotes is powerful. And you actually say, we shouldn't die from cancer. We can be proactive. And with a few minutes, and if you have a couple of minutes, I just thought that was such a strong statement to make. And so I would have to ask the question, you're the expert. You seem to be comfortable with that statement because we've heard you say it on more than one occasion. So help us to understand that we have all lost. I lost my mom to cancer, mesothelioma, and it was just devastating. And although she never had to go through, you know, chemotherapy or radiation, it was just a very, very aggressive cancer once it was diagnosed. And so to hear you make that statement, what can we as African Americans do? What can we as family members do to help others when you do? Well, you can do it in a two-part question. You can tell us what we can do to be proactive about it, and then you can tell us what we can do when you get the diagnosis.
Yes, yes. I think I appreciate that recollection on what I may have said in the past, and I'm going to stick with that statement.
All
So
right.
I think Black community is dying more from certain cancers or cancer types than other groups. That should not be the case at all, such that we know a lot about how to prevent cancer. It is difficult, but we know a lot. Some
Okay.
groups are benefiting a lot more than Black communities for a variety of historical and very entrenched factors. But the injustice of those factors is what we are trying to address. So for example, we know that we can prevent colon cancer in most people. You know, some people will get it, but we can prevent it. But what is happening is that our community is not able to access those tests and screening we
Yes.
know can save lives. So part of my research is trying to address that issue. The other part is that we know that Black communities die from some cancers more than others, and we don't participate in research that could benefit our community.
Okay.
So part of the solution is to be engaged in research so we can learn about ourselves as we learn about the other groups who do participate. And third, and most important, when you do develop cancer, to be
Mm.
able to seek care at a facility that really is using cutting edge approaches so that you can benefit the most from the most recent knowledge, the most, not every cancer has to be treated with cutting edge at Moffitt, but clearly some do. So if you have the opportunity, you should seek care where you can get the best care for your cancer. There are many other things we could do, but it all begins with awareness. It all begins with knowing what it is, what we have to do, and how we might take advantage of that knowledge that already exists. Majority of this knowledge exists. We just don't share it, and we just don't translate it to things that people can actually do.
And nobody knows it better than the person that is a part of that community, eat, lives, and breathe that community. And for that, we say thank you. We thank you for being assertive enough to stand by your quote. And we
Thank you.
appreciate that, Dr. Gwede. But listen, so that our radio listening audience and all of our supporters will know, we have the flyer up now on the Zoom as well. We are going to post it in our post so that it's disseminated out to the community. It is very, very important that you must register today, and we will have the link in order for our radio listening audience to be able to attend the workshop, virtual workshop on tomorrow. But that being said, would you like to at least let us know who we can expect on the platform tomorrow before you leave us, Dr. Gwede?
Sure. I think to say it in a general form, the program includes hearing from our leaders, our center director, and our hospital CEO, and also hearing from a number of different researchers that are going to speak about 3 different types of cancers that affect the Black community excessively. And then we will hear about a program that funds research, the George Edgecombe Society, and all that is sort of described in that sort of order on the flyer. But the main point is, if you can register and attend, come get information that may be helpful to you to implement the changes or begin some new screening behaviors in the areas that will be discussed. So there's hope to cure, hope to prevent, and to be part of the prevention and cure of cancer.
All right, sir. And on that note, we thank you. We thank you for jumping on the show to share with us this very important event. We will leave the flyer up. And let me also let our audience know that Dr. Gwede will be joining us next month with Dr. Powell as we talk about colorectal cancer. And we look forward to hearing more about the research, and that will afford you more time to talk about what's happening at Moffitt Cancer Center. Again, we say thank you, and we look forward to having you come back on the second hour of our show. I believe that's March the 10th.
Thank you. I'm looking forward to talking about colorectal cancer, which is the topic that I do most of my research in.
Awesome. And we'll catch you. We'll look for you on the Zoom tomorrow. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
Well, as we are still waiting to see if we can, Dr. Davis is working at this time to try to get Dr. Gavin on. It's Black History Month. And speaking of Black history, if you heard Dr. Gwede, he was talking to us. Not only is the event tomorrow being hosted by Moffitt Cancer Center, but it's Moffitt Cancer Center's George Edgecombe Society that is also responsible for bringing this wealth of information to us. So again, if you're listening, please like and share our show today, because it is important that as many people can get on, and it's free. It's just it's something you can watch while you're in your kitchen preparing dinner. Share the information. We will have the link that we will post after our show. It's Black History Month. And if you remember on last week, we were so fortunate and so blessed to have as our host on the show, Dr. Gladys West. And if you remember, hot topic was GPS. Who invented the GPS? One of the integral, pivotal individuals that worked with solving the GPS methodologies and development came from our very own Dr. Gladys West. And it's so fortunate to have her. She's a nonagenarian. That means she is still sharp at 90 plus years old. We mentioned on the show that we were going to have her back. So I'm just going to give you a heads up. She is planning a live book club for us. So if you did not purchase her book, make sure you do. The link is attached to our Facebook page. We'll hear more about it. She's coming back, and I believe we're working out the date, but it will be a Mother's Day special. So we will recruit mothers, daughters, sisters, all of us to come and be a part of that, because her message last week was to make sure that we are allowing our girls to go into the STEM program, the science, technology, engineering, and math. And as you remember, Dr. West, mathematician, 2 times over, Ph.D. in public service. And we want to help her push her book out. It helps to bridge the scholarships for both she and her husband, Mr. Ira West. That's somebody that's going back to where her roots began, and to make sure that scholarships are available to our young people to go into the STEM program. So you'll hear more about Dr. West, and you'll hear more about as the days come on. Let's see. We are waiting. Let's check our system now and see if Dr. Gavin is in. In the meantime,
we are waiting for his admission. We're waiting for his admission. He needs to be admitted in. Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we have certainly did our best in clicking that on.
Yes, so he is awaiting admission to the program. So we are waiting for him to be admitted in.
Because we have certainly admitted him into the Zoom. So we're going to be taking a break, but as we're waiting for him we've got our technicians on it as well.
Yeah, we cannot miss Dr. James R. Gavin.
We cannot. And we are certainly doing our part in trying to get him to come on. Let's do this. We have a few more minutes before we break for a commercial. One of the things we wanted to talk about with Dr. Gavin was also COVID-19 and its effects on the vaccine portion of it and its effects on our Black community. So let's take a break, Dr. Davis. And we wanted to introduce the video with our own Vice President, Kamala Harris. And
awesome.
We'll do that now as our technicians have a conversation with Dr. Gavin. And hopefully after that and our break, he'll be able to come on and enlighten us.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thinking politics? Tampa Bay Politics is on every Wednesday at 11 a.m. with Angela Birdsong. Tune in right here on In Touch Radio.
Call Ricky. Ask Ricky. You need medical or a lawyer? I got the man to do the legwork for you. We tried the other ones before, so believe we hunted down 813-248-6300. Everything gon' be okay, call Ricky, he coming. He taking care of state of Florida, grab a pen or sun down 184-361-RICK. That's 184-361-425. Never word from the point forward, just recline. Just ask Ricky, plus your boy statewide. Just in case you missed it, I'ma tell you one more time. 184-361-RICK. Call Ricky. Ask Ricky is a legal medical referral service. The doctors and lawyers in our network are trained in handling auto injury claims and getting you the best medical treatment and recovery. Dial 1-844-361-RICK. That's 1-844-361-7455.
Cheryl, answer your phone.
Ask Ricky.
Hello, Kubo. What have you got planned for today?
Come on, this way.
Adventure can be found anywhere, but the best place to start is in the forest.
It's the most powerful magic there is.
Head outside to discover incredible animals
Wow.
and beautiful plants that come together to create an unforgettable adventure. So grab your loved ones and explore a world of possibilities. Visit discovertheforest.org to find the closest forest or park to you. Brought to you by the Ad Council and the U.S. Forest Service.
My teacher said that we should have a plan in case of an emergency. Do we have one?
First thing I'm gonna do is grab a flashlight with dead batteries.
I'm going to start randomly throwing clothes in the bag. You two will be hiding in the closet and Dad won't be able to find you.
And that's when we both start crying.
Uncontrollably. Can you pass the cutlets?
Winging it is not an emergency plan. Make sure your kids know what to do during an emergency, who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Search Ready Kids at nyc.gov or call 311. Brought to you by the New York City Office of Emergency Management and the Ad Council.
Hey, this is Agent Wright, better known as Mr. Clean. You looking for some great barbecue? Come see them two brothers in the grill, located at 423 Virginia Street, Charleston, West Virginia. We got ribs, chicken, pulled pork, brisket, collard greens, mac and cheese, baby. Come get some and get you a nice, smooth cigar. 304-550-4431. That is 304-550-4431. Come get some, baby. The Rib Man, mama, the Rib Man.
We're playing your favorite old school. Today's R&B. With a smooth touch of jazz. You're listening to In Touch Radio.
And we are back. Thank you so much. Welcome back to Let's Talk Business with SJC. I'm here with my co-host, Dr. Sinead Davis.
Hello.
Oh, there she is. And to our radio listening audience, we were just so overly excited, have been for a couple of days now, knowing who our guest was going to be as we celebrate Black History Month. And I see that you were here. We are still trying to get Dr. Gavin on.
Dr. Gavin has tried to log in. If the host, whoever has that function, could just admit him, but he's also has the phone number now to call in.
Correct.
So we're awaiting that. So we've already done a fabulous introduction. So as he gets in, I have an important announcement.
Okay.
Yeah, so yesterday I got my first COVID-19 injection. And it's so important.
Oh my goodness, we've been talking about it and waiting as one of the essential workers. And walk us through the experience.
Well, it was pretty easy. The wait list was very long. Baycare is offering the COVID vaccine to community healthcare providers and dentists. Oh my gosh, is that Dr. Gavin in there?
Yes.
In the room already?
I don't think he's in the room. I think he's on the line.
Dr. Gavin, are you with us?
Oh.
So how is he going to respond to us?
Okay, well, this is what we're going to do.
Oh, Cheryl, you went on mute.
Oh,
yes.
Dr.
Gavin, can you hear us?
Anna is going to translate for us.
Dr. Gavin. Oh no, this is okay. Well, we will do the absolute best that we can. This is a living legend on here. How are you, Dr. Gavin? I tell you what, I tell you what, this is we gotta have, this just doesn't do him justice. This is Dr. Gavin is an international diabetes consultant, and this is something that we're gonna have to just maybe bring him back on to do, because he is just too great for this type of communication. What we'll do is maybe bring him back, or continue to try to admit him to the room. But what we wanted to bring him on to talk about was cardiovascular disease, being that February is Heart Health Awareness Month. February is a time to acknowledge, the symptoms and the fact that, women die of heart disease and don't experience those typical, Fred Sanford type of heart attack, oh, my chest hurts, or sweating type of symptoms that we all are very familiar with. Heart disease is the leading cause of death amongst African Americans. Every American, but particularly in African Americans, because the disparity in terms of the number of us that gets the high blood pressure and heart attacks and strokes, and that's what we mean by cardiovascular disease. The number of us is greater percentage-wise than it is in the majority population. In fact, we've been looking at cardiovascular disease and death rates since about the 60s. And in every other demographic, that number, that death rate actually has been going down. And this is a direct result of some of the medications that we have, access to care issues, and being proactive with our diet and exercise that maybe weren't advocated in earlier years. But African American deaths continue to be significantly greater. This is even more important because COVID-19, it's with us, it's a way of life now. COVID-19 deaths in African Americans are actually in those that have, heart disease, obesity, and diabetes. Those are the factors that puts African Americans at greater risk of suffering from death and not recovering from COVID-19. So it's important to acknowledge those things. Disparities in cardiovascular disease come as a result of several things that we call in health, in the health arena, social determinants. We are poor, and that means that we live more together. We may not have the money to have medications that are life-saving, or access to healthcare providers that can educate us on the tenets and or advise on ways to help us with our diet, help advise us on what types of activity will be best to protect us from a cardiovascular standpoint. Another thing that we need to know as African Americans is that COVID-19 vaccinations are in our communities, but we may not know about them. Also, with COVID-19 vaccines, a lot of us are skeptical about that. Wouldn't you agree, Cheryl?
I would agree 100%. And as soon as you give us the cue, we'll go ahead and play a message from our Vice President, Kamala Harris.
Okay, but let me first say this. Like I said, I got my COVID-19 shot on yesterday, but there's disparity in the vaccine distribution at present. Right now, we are getting the vaccines in our local churches, but still, comparatively, we're not getting vaccinated enough. And if other Americans are getting vaccinated, this means that they'll be protected against sickness and hospitalization and death, but it doesn't keep them from getting the virus itself. When we're exposed to the people who are protected, this can be a very dangerous thing in our community. It can hurt us. It can eradicate us. So we need to be mindful of that. It looks like a 404 number, and Dr. Gavin has a 404 number, is on. So Cheryl, you're on mute. Oh, Dr. Gavin, thank you so much for being patient with us. How are you today, besides very patient?
Well, besides being frustrated, not getting into the Zoom, I was doing just fine.
I thank you so much for your patience and also coming on anyway for these last moments. We wanted to give you a whole hour because there is just so much that we need to share. I have done an introduction, and Cheryl had an opportunity to go through some of the highlights of your career. Certainly, our whole hour can be filled with just introducing you, but I want to give our audience the benefit of your brilliant mind as a physician and a living legend in not just African-American health, but in American and international health. Something that I didn't mention, Cheryl, is Dr. Gavin has done consultations and promotions and professional education to providers in Russia, in China, I mean, all over the world. So
I might suggest, Sinead, that I have so little time. I presume they wanted to hear from me and not about me. So let's try to use it.
Let's get it then, Dr. Gavin. How you doing?
Okay.
So cardiovascular disease and COVID-19, you just were a part of a New York Times op-ed. Could you tell us about that?
Yeah, basically what we have done, there are 60 members of the African-American members of the National Academy of Medicine, which is one of the National Academies of Sciences, which represents sort of the so-called elite experts in medicine research. And we were very concerned, and we've been working on the hesitancy issue with the vaccine among African Americans. I think you may have already addressed this, that we cannot afford the low rates of vaccination that we're seeing in our communities. We're seeing 60% or so of the vaccines that have been distributed have gone to whites. About 5% of the vaccines that have been delivered have gone to African Americans, when we, in fact, are dying at rates that are twice as high, when we have greater susceptibility. And of course, we have more underlying vulnerabilities to the COVID vaccine. So what we're trying to do is really trying to work on that issue of hesitancy, trying to make sure people understand that, listen, the vaccine is not our problem. The virus is our problem. And one avenue to protect ourselves and our loved ones from the virus is through the vaccine. And quite frankly, it is one of the safer ways of doing that. And we want to get people past that hesitancy. And that's why we not only did the op-ed for the New York Times, but we're accompanying that by a video that's going to go nationally, trying to, again, send out that important message.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. If you can, when that video comes out, just make sure that I get it so that I can make sure that Cheryl puts that through for our audience. Dr. Gavin, you've had the vaccine yourself.
I have gotten both doses of the Moderna vaccine. And people wonder, Sinead, which of the ones they should get. At this point in time, whichever one is available to you. They both give very good coverage of the apparent variant of the coronavirus, the COVID-19 or the SARS-2 variant. What we worry about is the fact that these variants, the UK variant and the South African variants, are coming on strong. And while some protection is afforded, these things, the UK variant, for example, is doubling in its penetration every 10 days in this country. So the sooner people get the initial vaccine on board, then the sooner they'll have some protection. But right now, we want to make sure that we stay as much ahead of this virus as we possibly can. So whatever is available for you, take it, please.
Absolutely. The one I got yesterday was Pfizer. So as we encourage, African Americans to get vaccinated, can you speak a little bit about how the vaccine works? On the person, on the recipient of the vaccine versus their ability to spread the vaccine, because I think that's important for our audience to hear.
Yes, it's very important because both the Moderna vaccine and the Pfizer vaccine are based on what we call a messenger RNA technology. Many people get vaccinations every year. They get influenza vaccines. They've gotten measles, and they've gotten other vaccines for polio. The technologies of some of those, like influenza, is usually that you take the virus itself, that is the infecting agent, and you kill it. You inactivate it, and you give that to the person in the form of a vaccine, and then your body forms antibodies against that virus and the proteins on that virus, so that when the live virus infects you, then your body will have seen those proteins and knows that they're foreign and will attack them and eliminate them to keep them from making you sick. Messenger RNA technology is very different.
Yeah.
Because now all a virus is basically a package of nucleic acids, messenger RNA, sometimes DNA, wrapped in proteins that are unique to that virus. And all the virus wants to do is to get into a host, in this case us, and reproduce itself by damaging and killing your cells. So what messenger RNA technology does from Pfizer and Moderna is they give you the messenger RNA from the virus, the messenger RNA that would cause the spike protein of the virus, which is the protein that essentially links to your cells to allow that virus to get inside your cells. So once that messenger RNA is in your cells, your body begins to make that spike protein. Now, that's not virus. It's simply the spike protein that the virus will have. The body knows that this is foreign. Even though your body is making it, your body recognizes this foreign protein in you and starts making antibodies against it. Okay? And that's what now prepares you for the arrival of the virus in case you ever get exposed to the actual virus itself. The virus now gets into you. That spike protein is getting ready to latch onto your cells. Your body has antibodies and has immune cells which say, no, this is foreign stuff. I need to protect myself from this. And so now you start destroying the coronavirus that's trying to invade you, and it won't keep you from getting infected by the virus, but it keeps the virus from making you sick. And that messenger RNA technology is something that is modern, it's new, but as you can see, 94% effectiveness from the Moderna vaccine, about 90% effectiveness from the Pfizer vaccine, very good at protecting you from the virus.
And this is juxtaposed to the typical flu shot that changes every season, where its efficacy is about 40%.
Right.
So this is
and this is and I would say, Sinead, remember, viruses mutate. That's why we have this South African variant. That's why we have this UK variant of COVID. Influenza virus, you don't get the same influenza virus every year. That's why we try to keep pace by changing the vaccine. But the fact of the matter is that no matter how often you change the vaccine, the virus changes in a way that you can only get sort of partial protection sometimes. That's why it's so important that we try to get as much protection as we can against coronavirus so you can stop the spread. It is the spread that gives rise to those mutations and those variants that become such a danger for us all.
I totally agree. And thank you so much for that explanation.
And Dr. Davis, and if I may, and Dr. Gavin, we certainly appreciate you and having you, and you probably didn't hear us say earlier, but you will get to come back on our show and have the full hour to talk about this. The headlines today, as a result of Tampa Bay and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers winning the Super Bowl, is that they're concerned now because there were so many events, so many private parties, people were not social distancing, they were not wearing their masks, and now the hospitals are having to gear up for what they feel is going to be a super spreader in the next 10 to 14 days.
Yeah, and it's so unfortunate. I watched the partying and the celebrations going on in Tampa and realized that what we had really done, despite all of the advice given by Tony Fauci and others, despite all of the admonitions, we are still seeing people who are not obeying the public health dictates and creating a super spreader event at a time when those variants are going wild among us. This is one of the most dangerous periods to have super spreader events. And I really, really regret that.
Yeah. Sadly, we're also set to have a ticker tape parade or a victory celebration. So that will add to it at a time when hospitalizations and numbers are actually going down. That's very unfortunate. Just to maybe, tap into another part of your expertise, Dr. Gavin. Like I indicated before, people with heart disease in this Heart Health Awareness Month are at greater risk for dying if infected with COVID-19. Heart disease rarely, exists, on its own, and certainly there's, diabetes and obesity and other risk factors that contribute to that. There are new medicines that have cross-condition benefit that can help reduce cardiovascular disease, particularly in African Americans with the comorbidities that we tend to be number one, on, obesity, namely cardiovascular disease, type 2 diabetes. Can you speak to some of the novel medications that have these protective effects? Name them, talk about them, so that our listeners will be more aware and can talk to their healthcare providers about reducing their risks with use of them.
Yeah, I would, and I'm sorry that we don't have full time to do this, but because it's so important, Sinead, there is now a class, well, there are a couple of classes of new medicines, but one in particular that was approved as a diabetes medicine. But one of the most pleasant medical surprises that we've had in recent years has been the fact that those diabetes medicines turn out to have secondary benefits that are protective against a number of other conditions like heart conditions. And the class that is most known for this called the SGLT2 inhibitors. Now that's a lot of words for it, but patients will have heard the names of medicines on television. They would have heard about Jardiance. They would have heard about Farxiga. They would have heard about Invokana. They would have heard about Stilactro. These are medicines that are diabetes medicines, but the way they work is that they cause you to eliminate the excess glucose or sugar that is a hallmark of diabetes. And in the process of the way that they cause that excess sugar to be eliminated through your kidneys, they actually help you reduce things like your blood pressure. So they improve blood pressure as a secondary benefit, but they also get rid of that extra glucose that they're dumping calories that normally would be eligible for turning into fat. So they help you lose weight. These are not weight loss medicines. So already we've got three major things that are improved. Your blood sugar, which is important in diabetes, your blood pressure, which is important in diabetes, and your body weight, which is important in diabetes. But beyond that, they may also improve the function of your heart muscle by changing the nature of the fuel that your heart muscle uses. And these are things that are being studied and being found to have unexpected consequences. Heart failure rates go down in people who are on these medications. Hospitalizations for things like heart failure go down. Myocardial infarction, heart attack rates go down. Even with some of these medications, stroke rates may be improved. So one of the reasons why the American Diabetes Association and the American College of Cardiology are recommending that people with diabetes who, as you pointed out, are susceptible to higher risk for heart problems of a variety of sorts, one of the reasons why they're recommending that they should be on one of these kinds of medicines is because of the benefit that is generated for people with diabetes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Wasn't that a lot?
That was a lot. And I'm listening to him and I'm thinking to myself, not a diabetic, but if a medication is helping so many other underlying conditions, it sounds like something we should be taking, right?
Well, you know what? That's a very important point because some of these medicines have been approved for people with or without diabetes.
Yes.
Oh my goodness.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Particularly one of the SGLT2 inhibitors that Dr. Gavin spoke about. One has a new indication that cardiologists are even prescribing it to people without diabetes. There's another class that have some of the protections that you mentioned that actually have an indication for weight loss.
Correct.
Yeah, tell us about.
And those are those are the GLP-1. That stands for glucagon-like peptides. These are peptides, they're not small drugs, but these are protein drugs. They are modeled after a naturally occurring peptide that our bodies make. Okay, that help your body to respond to glucose by increasing the amount of insulin that you would produce in your pancreas to process that glucose. It shuts down another hormone called glucagon, and that reduced glucagon keeps your body from generating glucose that it would normally make. So it's a very good class of drugs for controlling diabetes, but they also have a variety of additional benefits, one of which is the one that Shanae just referenced, namely that these are agents that are extremely important because they can suppress your appetite. Mm-hmm. They can work in the central nervous system. They help you lose weight. There is the secondary benefit in those drugs that are approved for diabetes for reducing weight. But now if you use slightly higher doses, and the FDA has approved some of these at higher doses for weight loss. But you have to keep those two prescriptions totally separate. One, it's the same drug, but at a higher dose for weight loss than is for diabetes. But the diabetes dose is capable of causing some weight reduction in and of itself. And beyond that, they are also shown to reduce heart attacks. They are shown to reduce stroke, and they both classes, these GLP-1 drugs and those SGLT2 inhibitor drugs, actually protect your kidneys as well. Oh. This is extremely exciting information, and you can see why it's so important for African Americans.
It is.
Because even though we don't have quite as much data in African Americans as we'd like, the fact of the matter is that given the benefits that have been demonstrated, these are medicines that we really should be trying to make sure we get as much exposure in African Americans as possible so that we can generate the kinds of data that we need to be able to say to people with total confidence, hey, listen, we've got some new tools that we need to be using with greater frequency because they are really highly beneficial for our high-risk populations.
Absolutely, absolutely, and thank you for that explanation on those two categories of medicines. In fact, GLP-1 receptor agonists, they've actually been elevated with the current guidelines for standards of care for people with diabetes for those exact reasons, because it reduces the chance for the complications most associated with diabetes by way of those secondary benefits that that Dr. Gavin mentioned. So in our last few minutes, Cheryl, I want to just take a moment of personal privilege here because I know Dr. Gavin and he is supporting me as a mentor, and I just know that he can sing. I know that he likes poetry and is an avid golfer. So, Dr. Gavin, I want you to talk to us and just tell us how you've been staying safe and spending your time over these past several months. I know you just finished your COVID vaccine series, but you know, quarantining, you know, I know that you've been taken pretty seriously. So tell us about some hobbies to do.
I have been in quarantine. I've been doing those things that have been recommended by the public health recommendations. But while I've been here in quarantine, I have used my time to do some of the artwork that I like to do. I've built I've done some driftwood art. I built some furniture pieces, some display pieces, I have some antique collectibles. I have a collection of antique pressing irons. Some of you are probably just too young to even remember what pressing irons used to be like.
Yes.
I have a collection of them. I built a display cabin for them. I've displayed my African art. I've actually just completed an outdoor assembly of display items. I built a cabinet for an antique water pump, one of those old manual hand pumps. And I have an old antique big boiler pot that people used to make soap in and used to boil clothes in. Some folks used to boil chitlins and stuff in there. But I've put these things mounted them on a granite display. And I've done a lot of artwork, and it's been really satisfying to me. And I'm continuing to sing because I've been a part of a men's group that I've sung with for the last 16 years. They're in Atlanta, but I'm sending in, they ask me to participate. I send in my tape. And then we will sing again on Sunday, February 21st. I'm actually going to be doing a solo.
Wait a minute,
Andre
now,
Crouch,
Dr. Gavin, can you send us the link so that we can listen in?
Oh, sure. I'll send you the link. It's just for Cascade United Methodist Church in Atlanta, Georgia. And it's at 10 o'clock in the morning.
And we'll add that to our post so that those who couldn't get to hear you do a little something today, we will be able to catch you later in the month. And listen, we just want to say thank you. You will be coming back, and hopefully you'll give us just a little virtual tour, because it sounds like you've created an African American museum on your own property. And
well, you'd be impressed. I like it. I mean, it holds fascination for me.
All right. Well, we're going to hold you to that. And sir, it's been a pleasure and an honor to meet you. We were excited. Last week we met nonagenarian Dr. Gladys West, an integral inventor for the GPS system. Today we have you, and you know it's important when you're talking about the African American community and how COVID is affecting us, when you have a message coming from the president and the vice president, especially the vice president, that's making a strong appeal for, if you have not taken the vaccination, make that appointment and get it done. We say thank you. We're not going to say goodbye to you because we know you're coming back, but you are our Black History Month legend. And for that, we say thank you to my co-host, Dr. Sinead Davis. You can find her at Your Best You. Her information will be linked. What we're going to do is go ahead and start the tape, and Vice President Kamala Harris will send us off until she's done. But before that, this show is coming to a wrap.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Greetings. When I was growing up, we sang in the choir at Oakland's 23rd Avenue Church of God. We sang hymns about how faith, combined with determination, will see us through difficult times. Well, this is one of those times. Nearly 450,000 Americans have died because of COVID-19. Small businesses have closed. People have lost their jobs. Too many can't afford to pay their rent or fill their prescriptions or even attend church in person on Sundays. And as you know, Black communities have been some of the hardest hit. Through it all, you have kept the faith. You have prayed. You have given solace to families in mourning. You have given sustenance to people in need. Now, almost a year in, we have a new reason to hope and to believe. We have a vaccine. I've received both doses of the vaccine, and I'm going to tell you, it is safe, simple, and it will save lives. And it was also developed in part by a Black scientist, Dr. Kizzy Corbett, which is important to note as we celebrate Black History Month. So we need your help to make sure everyone you know in your congregation and community that they get vaccinated. This is about valuing life, about the dignity of life, and about saving lives. So when it's your turn, please get the vaccine. And as Scripture tells us, You shall raise up the foundations of many generations. You shall be called the repairer of the breach, the restorer of streets to dwell in. So let us repair, let us restore. With this vaccine, a new day is coming. Let us welcome it in. Thank you. May God bless you, and may God bless America.
Yes, the importance of getting that vaccination. Dr. Davis?
Yeah, I'm gonna leave the last word to Dr. Gavin as a part of that 60 member panel and push for African Americans to take this vaccine. Take us out with some informative tips.
I think it would suffice to say that we really have to focus on the fact that the vaccine is not our problem. It is our support. The virus is our problem, and we really need to rally around the protection offered by the vaccine in this instance. All of our loved ones and their outcomes depend on it.
Amen to that. Thank you, sir. This show is a wrap.